ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in for One Akata Nation News Hour with Solon's #1 edutainer, Petty Murphy, here reporting to you live from the back of the classroom at Foundational Black America's #1 source for edutainment, Akata News Network. We are fresh off the New Year festivities, so excuse me if I'm a little off my square. One moment. Yes, hello? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we were actually getting some news from production. We were actually going to get over to the field plantation with Nap Turner about some international debate, but right now we have some breaking news about some things going on with our own Nicki Minaj. So with that, we'll go over with some breaking news.
We were not being represented and not being admired for our beauty. If we felt like that as Black women, why would we want to do that to other women? Amen. Why would we now need to make other people downplay their beauty so that we can feel, no, that's not how it works. I don't need someone with blonde hair and blue eyes to downplay their beauty because I know my beauty. Do you understand? It doesn't bother me that a woman feels and says that she's beautiful. Amen. Why shouldn't she feel that? Why have we gotten to a point where certain colors or certain kinds of people have to be afraid of loving themselves and loving the way they look? Mm-hmm. Like, isn't that wild?
I know she's not trying to do like a women should come together thing, is she? Because if that's what she's doing, why does she talk down on or denigrate Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, all the other rappers? Why does she talk down upon those women to make herself feel better? Secondly, Black women, we don't denigrate white women. We don't talk down on white women, period, for their beauty or anything else, period.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from that breaking news. Well, it appears that that WAP, or that wet has gotten Nicki Minaj into a little bit of hot water. But as you see, their true colors will always come out, and a tether's gonna tether. Well, the last we checked or heard, they're actually signing a petition now going around for her deportation. I hope TPUSA can get her some TPS. But on that note, we'll get back over to our one and only Nap Turner with the expose about our international student debate. Thank you.
Right, yeah, so you already know what it is, right? So, as I say, in that new under the sun, so I got a few clips. And in fact, I'm going to start you off with one clip just to give you an idea how today's episode is going to go. But here, we'll check that clip.
What are prejudices? You admitted to several at the beginning.
Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferiors. We have, of course, our own reasons for saying so.
Well, what are they, Mister?
Well, first thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our fists are burnt that we look like Negroes. And also, we've been ruling part of Africa for hundreds of years during the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
Well, what about your prejudices against white men?
Well, back home, if a woman marries a white man, she's considered mean, and when she dies, the priests never pray for her as they would do for any ordinary man. It's just considered as suicide.
Why do you think they look down on the white people so much?
Well, for the first reason, religiously they consider them unclean in heart because they eat pork, and that's prohibited in religion.
Susan, you got any prejudices?
So that being said, now I'm going to actually fully introduce the clip. This is actually a 1957 international students debate where they flew over international students from all over the world, and they were exchange students. So they were children from all over the country that came from all over the world and were distributed to different school divisions all over the country. And then before the process was completely over, they brought them all together and they basically had debates with all these high school kids from all foreign national high school children, and basically asked them a whole host and range of questions about race relations from America to international politics and all type of things, but they actually recorded them. But the reason that this is actually kind of, for me, I wanted to make a point about this is that I want you to keep in mind, this was 1957. So pay attention to the answers and the questions that are posed to these children by the adult commentator, and pay attention to their responses. And, you know, they say kids say the darndest things because children tend to not be as politically as correct as adults, and they say what they actually see. So you can kind of get a glimpse into the thought process of quote unquote black foreign nationals in 1957. Okay, remember 1965 was the Civil Rights Act. So you get an idea of how they actually already saw themselves as opposed to you at this time. And then after that, we'll spin the block and we'll talk about it.
Talking about, and all of you, about the importance of news about South Africa in the Gold Coast, in Nigeria, and in Ethiopia. I'm wondering whether news about racial problems in the United States also takes up a good deal of space in your countries. Does it in the Gold Coast?
Yes, very, because after all, the Negroes come from the Gold Coast, and we feel very badly about what the Americans are doing to our Negroes. I know that one of my ancestors probably came here too, and from what I hear in the Gold Coast, the Americans don't give the Negroes a fair chance of activities here. For instance, they don't give the Negroes the same education as they give their white Americans. And also, for instance, a Negro wouldn't be permitted to go to ride on the same bus with a white man. As for me, I don't think that color, which is purely a natural thing, can be such a great bar to human understanding. And I think America is a democratic nation, as it calls itself, but this one thing really doesn't show it all very well as a democratic country.
Amelia, you've been in the New York area for about a month now. Does the picture you had of America that you've just described correspond to what you've seen here in the schools and the communities you've been in?
Well, when I came up here, most of the people in New York told me that segregation is only practiced in the South, but in the North they have now begun to have integration. Well, I didn't think much about it, but one day after school, I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine, and she's an English girl, and we sat there and waited to be served by a waiter. Well, the waiter just came around, looked at us and passed us and went around serving others who came in after us. Well, I knew at once what he was doing, but my friend didn't know it. So she walked up to the waiter and said, "Well, we've been waiting here so long, won't you serve us?" The waiter just looked at her hard and then looked back at me. And then I told the girl that we better leave the restaurant because I understood it. But the girl was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because that was what I was expecting to find. And
how about
Americans,
you, Miss Finn?
Well, in my country...
No, I mean your experience with segregation here. Have you had any?
Well, when I came to America, I was in Dwightmore High School, and I went for a haircut in the city. I looked up for a barber shop. I went there, and they told me they were busy. I went to a second one. The same thing happened, and to a third one, too.
How about Dwightmore? Are there any Negro students there?
Well, there are quite a lot of them. In fact, about 3-4 Negroes in the school. And they are well treated as the other white people, and I'm happy about it. In fact, one of the vice presidents of the school is a Negro himself, Linton Marsh.
How about you, Boniface? Have you met segregation at all here?
I've not met it. I think they must be pretty lucky, because I've been looking forward to get the segregation against me, but I have not got it yet. It's an irony that the South African will get it and I wouldn't get it myself.
Well, Susan really has felt some here. It's interesting that you're the only one who has not. Yes?
What are we after now? I think we'll come back to this question of I think it was the United States racial problems. Well, I feel, of course, that the outlook here has continued to be better.
You do?
I do. But on the other hand, this racial segregation, which of course I do, and I'll always make that point clear, is an outcrop of insecurity in economic conditions, and also somehow low-pointed opinions and all that sort of thing. provides other people with that same pretext by which they could criticize the United States. Asians and Africans can't understand why a country devoted to the greatest ideals of freedom and democratic government should expect to discriminate among their citizens.
We didn't get to ask Sue whether in South Africa her newspapers play up racial news in America too.
Oh yes, they played up a great deal. Well, naturally we get all these stories about the riots at Clinton, Tennessee, and how they had to escort these people to school and bring out the National Guard and so on and so forth.
Mrs. Waller, if I may interpret,
Yes.
I think there are more rats in the Johannesburg area, in the Negro area, than there are in Tennessee. Am I right, Susan?
Oh, well, there are a couple of...
Rats, yes.
No, I wouldn't say riots.
And wait a minute, in the Johannesburg area, you have only one telephone to the whole Negro population.
Oh, rubbish.
Yes.
Where do you
oh,
get
well,
your facts from?
Facts from books written on countable times on South Africa.
Well, that's
We are not the only country in the world.
ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely true.
I'll get this for you afterwards. There are not, I can
All right, let me
guarantee
finish
you-
my question.
One
Let me
telephone.
finish my statement, please.
No
One
wonder people are
telephone-
prejudiced
Let me
with
finish
so
my
much
telephone,
ignorance.
please. One telephone in the whole Johannesburg district. Why? They don't want
But
the
that's not
Africans
true.
to have a means of communication by which they could rebel against the people. I'm speaking from facts. John Gunter wrote that.
That's absolutely ridiculous. And I think if
Ridiculous.
you try and...
Oh, you didn't say it was wrong. It is ridiculous,
It's
but not wrong.
it's wrong.
That's
It is wrong.
Ridiculous,
That-
but not
That
wrong.
is no fact.
Bonnet, you should have got your facts from one-sided...
It's not one-sided, Mesfin. It's
It
not
should
one-sided.
be, because
you know.
what you've got is almost all what you've got
All right.
is
Look,
I
against
can
each
assure
I
other.
can give you 4 concurrent. John Gunter wrote that. An African newspaper in Nigeria wrote that. A British paper wrote that. A Lebanese paper wrote that. Are all the world prejudiced against
Well, you
South
can't
Africa?
so much criticize the country without actually going there and seeing what is happening, you see.
I don't need to go there. I told you I wouldn't
You
pay a penny
should.
to go there. How
because
can I go
we
there?
have come to America and we are looking what they are doing in America. We might have got false ideas of America.
In
I
America,
would
the
appreciate
outlook
it
has
if you-
continued to be better. In South Africa, the outlook has continued to be worse.
Well,
As a
I
matter of
disagree
fact-
And
with
that
you on
exactly,
I
Ms.
disagree
Mesfin.
with you.
As a matter
No,
of
that
fact, we are
exactly.
progressing.
Wait a minute, Susan. That exactly, Mesfin, is what, Susan, I think you better take care about this. When these Africans come to learn that they are really being discriminated, they are learning now. And when they rise, you know what has been imposed upon the people by law, or what has been suppressed when you get the people really suppressed. When they rise, they shall throw away that same government. And you are...
Well, let me, look,
instead
you've
of-
had your speak, I'm going to have mine now. It so happens that this apartheid, which you most probably have misinterpreted already,
No, you misinterpreted
just a
it
minute,
yourself.
let me speak,
Not
is
me.
working towards a solution in South Africa, and it so happens that there will be no riots, nothing like that. This apartheid policy, which I will afterwards speak to you about, seeing I think there's only very little time, is working towards getting self-realization and self-rights for the black people within their own areas. And I think if you make a careful study of apartheid, you will see, and already they've started legislating in South Africa and spending vast sums of money. Within the next 20 years, we're going to have a solution to our problems.
I've spent 15 years learning it, and every day I become more prejudiced against South Africa. I don't need to spend a day more.
But I
And
think
for
you're getting your
instance,
facts
please,
from the wrong source.
not
That's all
from
I
the
can
wrong
say.
source, please. You're getting your facts from the government laid out principles and practices
Well,
by
I
which
live
racial
there.
segregation will
I
be
live there. I ought to know.
I don't
you
want to
you
live
live
there.
7,000 miles away. How can
That's
you know?
not better. I have a home, I have
Read-
a house, I
reading
can walk anywhere I
propaganda.
have.
Reading propaganda.
Unfortunately,
All right,
our
no,
time
no,
is
Susan,
running out.
let's put that down, bye.
I'm wondering if anybody's got a final word to say on the subject of prejudice and where they come from.
Yes,
Mesfin?
Folks, I understand I'm becoming an African, I suppose.
Well, and I think, Susan, I'm sure that government policies sometimes conflict because you and I get on so well together, and I'm sure that this time our governments are in the wrong. So if we get on together, I'm sure in the future they will try to understand each other better.
Bonifant?
I think the important thing to consider is whether on the balance, the direction in which a nation is going is the right one. If two different, even contradictory opinions or points of views can be hospitable, exist in hospitality in the United States.
You're talking about Amelia's point at the beginning now.
At the beginning, yes.
Yes, when she said that Americans, she was confused because they could be pro and anti at the same time.
Yes. Can have hospitality in the United States. This is progress it may not be, it is not weakness.
The dynamism of a democracy that
dynamism
gives
of the
hospitality
yes.
to 2 points of view. I'm sorry, that's all the time we've got. We'll be back again next. Welcome to our...
Back, and I'll try to be as brief as possible because I really try to keep the videos at least, I try to under 20. But anyways, one of the wildest things to me was the South African lady, you know, as a young lady. It was funny because in her mind's eye, she was the only one that actually experienced any type of racial precedence as being an African in America. And she just happened to be the only white one. But if you pay attention to what she said, because, you know, hindsight's 2020, she lauded and applauded and spoke about how great her apartheid system in South Africa was and what they were doing for the indigenous Africans, right? And in 20 years, how with all the money and resources that they had fed into it, it would become basically a utopian society. Well, we see how that turned out, right? But even crazier, right? If you pay attention, how much has actually changed? How much has really changed, or do we just not really pay attention because we're stuck in this infinite time loop where we keep doing the same things over and over? And you figure that was 1957. We're talking about what, almost 80 years now? So for the most part, everybody that was around back then, or adults in that age, for the most part, are almost pretty much all gone now. And unless we actually start looking back and going through the historical record, just like in the video I did yesterday where you saw the Mexican gentleman outright lie about what happened during the civil rights movement and Mexican Americans' contribution to helping Black Americans. But I showed you the receipts. These are the things that they don't want you to actually know happened in history or what's going on historically. And then they feed you the narrative. And it normally comes from one place. And if you notice, it's the people that always want you to feel sorry for yourself so that they can weaponize that grief and that intergenerational trauma to their own benefit. And it never benefits you. Now, if you see how all of these foreign nationals actually viewed the American Negro and their cause, and none of them even saw themselves for the most part as Black, especially the Northern Africans, Ethiopians, just like the Somalians now, right? Eritreans and the like. It's always been like that. So if this debate series was recorded 8 years before the Civil Rights Act, had our parents and grandparents actually paid attention to what was going on the international stage, they would have knew before the ultra liberal progressive democratic socialists convinced them to fight to be able to import other Black people from the diaspora who I've shown you before under color of law are white citizens when they go through the immigration and naturalization process, which means they would have no benefit in even allying with American Blacks or the quote unquote Negro class in the United States of America, because it would serve them no good. And they've done exactly what was best for them. So now if you fast forward and you see what Nicki Minaj is doing, basically insinuating and claiming that Black women beat down or talk down to white women and their beauty standards to make them feel less than, as if we have not seen Black women not be able to dress a certain way just because of the way their natural bodies are and they've been shamed for, or they have to put chemicals in their hair so that they don't look as the census or consensus standard used to be, or still is in some places, that natural Black hair is unkept. So they couldn't wear their natural afros or braids. They had to either get wigs or perms. So I find it odd now that the Trinidadian Tether is now blaming Black women. And we know what she really meant by that. At least that's how it appears. And this is why delineation is actually happening. And I can see why some people don't get it. But maybe for once, to try putting yourself in our shoes and understand what we did and the gift that we bestowed upon, because it was a gift. Y'all could have been stuck in the countries your ancestors were in, going through what they're going through now in places like Nigeria, Sudan, South Africa, and the like. One more thing before I go. If you pay attention, right, and I'm going to actually link that documentary in there so you can go back and watch it yourself. But in those young Africans' minds, the American Negro, our grandparents and parents, our ancestors, they were living in an apartheid regime. That's how they view what was happening in the United States of America, that Black Americans were under apartheid. But that's not the way we were taught in school. And that's not the way any of the Caucasoids here see it or will ever. That's why they're trying to rewrite history now and play in your face. And then all the foreign nationals that you fight for are assisting them by gaslighting you, by telling you that their great-grandparents helped you when in fact they said, I don't want to lie with them niggas. Their problems is their problems. You know why? Because on paper, we white citizens, so fuck them. And on that note, I'm going to get out of here. It is what it is. And y'all have a great and prosperous new year. It is the one and the only Nat Turner. And we're going to get you back to the house studio. So remember, realize, and transparency forces accountability. Y'all keep your eyes to the stars and keep that head on a swivel. And as I always say, it's a dirty game.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back finally again to the house studio with the one and only Petty Murphy reporting to you live from the back of the classroom here at Akatanewsnetwork. I'll say it was one hell of a show today. Now, we had a breaking news brief with Trinidad's #1 export, Nicki Minaj. Well, I think she's ran into the brick wall known as the foundational Black America, the Solon, the VEIWED. She's going to find out real fast, real hard that you'll play with us, and when we get tired, we play back. Well, if there's one thing that I did notice from the expose, ladies and gentlemen, is that had previous generations actually paid attention and read the room, we probably wouldn't be going through the things that we're going through now, because it was fairly obvious how the foreign national community had already viewed the American Negro before they got here. So when we were looking for allyship and feeling that if you're Black, then that comes before anything, well, clearly that wasn't the case, because for them, nationality and tribalism come before all. And to them, you ain't nothing but an Akata. And on that note, ladies, we'll bid you adieu. Thank you for your time, your patience, and your grace. It is the one, the only, foundational Black America's #1 edutainer, Petty Murphy, here reporting to you live from the back of the classroom at Solon's #1 source for edutainment, Akatanewsnetwork. Never forget, ladies and gentlemen, you stay Black and you stay proud.